Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our In the Know Tips and Tricks session. We wanted to start this weekly series to give everyone some simple and easy tips that they can go back to their desk and quickly implement. We know that all of your time is valuable, so we'll keep sessions to no more than 30 minutes, sometimes even less. And we push the topics out monthly, so you only have to sign up once for the monthly series instead of 4 or 5 times. Today we're kicking off our June series, but if you've missed any of the past sessions, they are on the Planet Technologies YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Planet Technologies. Again, today we're kicking off our June topics, and we're going to start talking about clutter today. So I'm your host. Sometimes it'll be other people from Planet, but most of the time you'll be talking to me. I have more than 15 years experience with project management across multiple industries, including technology, legal, nonprofit, and construction. I'm also a longtime Microsoft geek and SharePoint nerd, so this session gives me a chance to do what I love most, giving more Microsoft information to information workers that they can put to use right away. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and you can find me on both of those at Tanya Kaiser. A little bit about Planet. Planet has been providing expert support in the Microsoft world for over 18 years. We offer full services for the entire Microsoft Cloud and Productivity Suite, including advisory, deployment, and training services, mobile application development and solutions, and strategic business consulting, including technology, compliance, and security guidance. So we're going to jump right into it. This may be a shorter session today, but we're going to talk about clutter. What is it exactly, and why do you want it? So Clutter, this is straight from Microsoft. Clutter is a new Office 365 feature that lets you focus on the mail messages that you want to see. So what it actually does is move your low priority messages out of your inbox so you can scan for more important messages. And then it also analyzes your email habits based on the past behavior. So if it determines that messages you're most likely to ignore, it will move those to a folder called Clutter, and you can always review them later. A couple of things to note. Clutter was actually turned on by default for Office 365 in June 2015, so coming up on just a year later. It's been hanging out there. A lot of people are just now starting to notice that folder. It is only available with Office 365, so if you went out and purchased Office Business and you never touch Office 365, you won't have access to Clutter since it is an Office 365 feature. So Clutter itself was actually introduced in the fall of 2014, and then last year was when they turned it on by default. So managing clutter, again, this is an Office 365 feature, so you manage the clutter settings through Office 365, not Outlook. Once it's enabled in Office 365, it appears as a folder in Outlook and other mail clients that are linked to that same Exchange account. So we're going to jump right into our demo, and I'm actually going to show you what it looks like in our different mail apps. So if you're using the Windows 10 Mail app, this should look pretty familiar to you. You've got your inbox. You can always click the hamburger menu, and you see you've got your inbox, draft, sent items, and it's only when you click more that you're going to see that clutter folder. So you can see now I'm in the clutter folder. You can see this at the top here, but it's only when you click more that you can see. And in this demo account, I've got 41 messages inside clutter. The first message is, of course, letting me know what clutter is. So some of the points that I just mentioned, it looks like you've ignored some of these messages in the past. They even give you a privacy notice, and they also give you some options in this really small print at the bottom to stop separating items that are identified as clutter, go to options. And if you hover over that options link, you'll notice it's an Office 365 link. So if I click that, it's going to take me directly to Office 365 to manage it. Even if I right-click on clutter, there's no manage options. If I come into the mail settings apps, you're really not going to see anything there for clutter as well. So that's the Windows 10 Mail app. Now if we were to look straight at Outlook, it's a little bit easier to see our clutter folder since we have that sidebar that's kind of always expanded. You can see I've got 40 items. I had just read that one, so it's really 41 items. And we've got the same email with the option to go to Office 365 to manage clutter. Now the one interesting thing about the full Outlook client is if I right-click on the clutter folder, I do have the option to manage clutter, but when I click that, you'll see that it's going to take me directly to a browser and ask me to sign in to Office 365. So even though if you're using the full Outlook version, if it's linked to an Office 365 account, you're still going to have to go manage that in Office 365. You can see where this took me straight to my settings menu, but if I was in just my Office 365 client and I hit my settings gear, under the bottom you've got My App Settings. I would click Mail. and it's going to take me to that same area. And you'll see under the automatic processing, I've got an option for clutter. So again, if you're in the Windows app, you can click the More button, and then you'll be able to see that clutter folder. If you're in a full Outlook client, it's a little bit easier to see that clutter folder, but again, when you right-click on it, you still are going to click Manage Clutter, and it's going to redirect you to Office 365. So that's a really simple way that you're managing clutter. Now, one of the things about clutter is it learns the more that you use it. So if you are really seeing this folder, you're not quite sure what's happening with it, the way that you move messages into that, you can adjust it. If you keep seeing messages from one person that gets, in clutter, you can always right-click and mark it as not clutter. Works pretty much the same if you're using a different mail client other than Outlook. You can drag them into the inbox or drag an item into clutter and say, hey, this is clutter. Again, it's going to get smarter over time by learning what messages you mark as clutter. So not too much we can demo with that since that's a process that happens over time, but I'm just going to show you in our mail app. If we go over to our inbox, and maybe we see this email here from Belinda Newman, and we really don't want to be seeing sports statistics. That's not something that we want in our inbox. Again, we can click the Move button, and then we would just say Move that to clutter. So over time, it's going to start learning that those messages that come in, we really don't want to see them. It's not necessarily from Belinda, so we want to make sure we keep an eye and only mark the messages with sports as clutter. If there's other messages from Belinda we want to make sure that we move those back to the inbox. So it takes a little bit of time. It's very similar to working with junk email. You may get an occasional junk email message that should be in your inbox. You right-click it, you mark it not as junk, you say the sender. Clutter is a little bit more automated, and it's going to learn for you, but you are going to have to move those messages in and out of your box. So this is maybe an example working within the clutter folder, an update to the employee parking policy. So maybe I want to make sure I see those, so I would drag those over to my inbox. And again, over time, it's going to start learning that that as these emails come in, if it's employee related, I want it in my inbox, not in my clutter folder. If it's sports stats that people are asking questions about, I want those to go to my clutter folder. Here's another one, it's a recipe. Maybe we want that to go into clutter as well. So really, really simple to start having clutter adapt to you. The process is really similar from the Outlook app. Now again, I've already moved some of these messages around, but if we scroll through here, we can see our potluck party recipe. So again, since this is already displaying my clutter folder, I can just drag it over. We've got some proposal items in here. I'm just kind of scanning it to see if there's any of those recipe ones or something else that maybe I just am not interested in. And there are a few things that clutter will never move for you, and we'll get to that at the end of our broadcast today. So it looks like most of these are ones that I would want to see. Maybe this Cloud Mobile Working Group is one that I don't really want to be part of that, so I would drag that one to clutter. But again, over time, it's going to start learning, hey, these are the messages that you want in your inbox. These are the ones that you really aren't too concerned about, so let's go ahead and move those. And again, it's just going to learn. You can also just right-click on a message, and if you scroll through here, you can move it to the clutter folder, but if you look down, it actually has a move to clutter button. So again, I prefer to use the fully fleshed out Outlook application because it gives me much more features, and it just wants to make it easier for you. So I don't have to go move, other folder, find clutter. You can have a button that says right there, move to clutter. And again, the fact that my clutter folder is always displayed and it's never hidden from me like it is in the Mail map is one of the reasons I prefer the Outlook application. So again, going on to our next topic. This is why I said this one's probably going to go really, really quickly. They try and make clutter very simple. It's either on or off. You drag messages. There's no rules to set up. There's no having to mark sender as safe. It wants to learn for you. So if you see that clutter folder and now you're realizing that it's putting messages in there and you don't want to take the time each day to mark messages to your inbox or move them to clutter, you just want to turn it off and you'll just set up a rule when you need to. Really easy to do. Again, we already talked about managing the mailbox. It happens in Office 365, not in Outlook. So again, this is going to be in your Office 365 settings. You do it under the automatic mail processing, which we already saw earlier. So I'm going to show you again really quickly where you would manage that. So if we come in and we're signed into Office 365, again, either from our app launcher We can hit mail, we can see that, but really we don't even need to leave this home page if that's where we're landing. We can go to the settings gear, and you'll see at the bottom under My App Settings, they have an option for mail. So it lets you go directly to it. You don't have to go to the Mail app and then select options like you would before. They give you that option right at the bottom. And it's really one of the third item. So you've got Mail. If this wasn't expanded for some reason, you could expand it. And what you're looking for is under Automatic Processing and Clutter. And it's a simple, uncheck it. So that's all it takes to disable clutter. So when email is received, separate items identified as clutter, you would simply turn it off. You can see now that it's off, you don't even have that second checkbox. Now the second one, if you are using clutter, it is pretty important and should be on by default. So this says send me notifications about messages that are separated as clutter. So that means that you're going to get an email once a week saying, hey, you have some items in your clutter folder, you may want to review them. And that's pretty much it for turning clutter on or off. Now, if you uncheck that notification, it doesn't prompt you and say, are you sure you don't want to know? But it is turned on by default. And it's not something that they're going to email you every day. The default setting is you're going to get a weekly email reminding you about clutter items. So, of course, you can always give feedback to the Office 365 Clutter team. They are really responsive to that. So, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, Clutter was introduced in fall 2014 to those first really clients that get all the new features on Office 365. They actually announced on their Office blog in May 2015 that Clutter was going to be turned on by default in June, and then they adjusted their timeline to let people know based on the feedback that they get. So if you see those options in Office 365, to let them know what you're thinking, and maybe you're having an issue, Clutter is not learning the behavior, absolutely send in those comments. If you click the link to learn more about Clutter, it's actually going to take you to an Office 365 support page that'll give you the basics, turn Clutter on, help Clutter learn your preferences, and then how Clutter actually filters messages. So it's a lot of the same information that we've recapped, but again, directly from Office 365, they give you the option to find out that information. So there's really not a whole lot to learn about Clutter. Junk mail filtering can sometimes be pretty complicated to get it right. If you're using any sort of rules on your email or filters, those can sometimes go a little wonky, but a few other things to know about Clutter. So if you do have rules set up, Clutter is applied after any rules or filters. So with junk mail, that junk mail never hits your inbox. It reads it as a spam message, maybe based on the subject matter, the sender, something not quite right. This depends a lot on your system admin settings, whoever's running your Exchange account. But that email never hits your inbox for junk mail. Clutter is actually done after that initial pass. So a junk email item is going to go to the junk email. All of your rules are going to be applied on the server. So if you have things coming in from Jane Doe and they go to a certain folder, Clutter is going to work after all of that. And then again, Clutter is never going to identify messages as clutter by default, and this applies if you're on Office 365. Any messages from yourself are never going to go to Clutter. Again, if you're using Office 365 Business, so anyone in your management change, your manager, your director, or above, and then if you are a manager, any of your direct reports. So that's something, again, to know that's really, really helpful as well. Now, one other thing that I will mention is that depending on how your Office 365 account is set up, there can be domains that Clutter will also never filter. So you may have several domains within your company, and your system admins can work that into Clutter so that anything coming from that domain never gets moved to Clutter. It always makes it to your inbox. So that's one other thing as well. And you can work with your IT administrators to see if there's certain messages that still seem to be going to Clutter and you've already tried to help it adapt. You can work with them. Maybe it's a domain that needs to be whitelisted. But for the most part, Clutter is very, very simple. You turn it on, you turn it off. If you spend a little bit of time each day right-clicking, in my example, I'm going to go back to that really quickly on that Mail app. We talked about maybe that email for sports tips. We really don't want to see that, so we put that in the Clutter item. The recipe emails that come in. One thing that's really popular in a lot of companies is an email goes out saying, hey, it's so-and-so's work anniversary, and then everybody clicks reply to all, and your email inbox is flooded because everybody's celebrating somebody's work anniversary or somebody's birthday. Doesn't mean that you don't want to see that information, but maybe you don't want it in your inbox. Maybe you want it to go to Clutter and you review it weekly when you get that email notification. So it's not necessarily looking at the sender, it's also looking at the content as well, which is what makes Clutter really able to adapt to what you're noticing. So again, definitely a tool that is worth spending a little bit of time on. Again, showing the Mail app, I just want to remind everybody that if you're using the Windows 10 Mail app, you actually don't see Clutter until you click that More, and then you see the folder for Clutter. So that makes it a little bit harder to move things in and out of Clutter from the Windows Mail app. From within Outlook, you've got a folder there. You can right-click. You've got the Move to Clutter, Move to Inbox items. So really, really easy. I'm actually in the Clutter folder. If I go to the inbox, you can see Move to Clutter. Even under the Move button, I've got another Clutter, Move to Clutter. So Outlook makes it a little bit easier. But again, if you have it turned off, you're never going to see that folder. So if I go back into my settings window one more time, and I say I don't want to use Clutter, it's going to take a little bit of time to adapt. I'll go ahead and close out my mailbox. And then I'll open my mail again. You can see Clutter is still there, but if I come up to and try and sync it, it may disappear. There's a little bit of time for that to roll down. Let's see if we still have a Clutter inbox. We still have it, but it won't be moving things into it anymore. So again, something that you can easily turn on, turn off. It has been set by default for just about a year, but some people are just now starting to notice it. So that's all we have for Clutter. Now, one of the things, this is an exact example of something that we would want to let people know about. So if you are connected to Office 365, you've probably already figured out that they push out a lot of changes, things like Clutter that's been on default now for a year, or things like the groups versus a SharePoint group versus a SharePoint site. So these are the sort of things that we like to keep our customers informed of at Planet Technologies, and we like to give you these really short tips, like our today's session. We've wrapped this up in 10, 12 minutes. I spent time going back and forth to the same thing. We probably could have done it in even a shorter amount of time. But one service that we offer with Planet Technologies is Evolve 365. So this is a subscription-based help desk as a service for Microsoft Office 365. We really think that it helps end-user adoption, it helps to engage the users, and it lets users access on-demand training videos anytime that they want. We can also add on live support as well. We can also add on vision and planning services if you're planning an upgrade or a migration to Office 365. And then for every service, you get a dedicated Office 365 trusted advisor. So I'm one of the trusted advisors for Evolve 365. I spend a lot of time with the product. It really has a lot of good content in there. We have more than 25,000 videos that are easily searchable, and again, they're available to users on demand, self-help, self-paced training anytime. So if you didn't want to go and search the Microsoft blogs, you could log on to Office 365, do a quick search for Clutter, and then find out how to turn it on and turn it off in a little 10-second video. And since we have a little bit of time left, I'm just going to show you really quickly what that would look like. So I'm going to sign into our root site. And the great thing about Evolve 365 is that every customer gets their own portal. So you have a portal that's dedicated to you and your users, and we can even specify what kind of content they see. So if you're currently on Office 2013 and you're working on an upgrade to Office 365, but maybe you don't want to show that content yet, we can make sure that on your portal that it's only Office 2013 content that is shown. And then when you actually do have your upgrade go forward, then we would show the Office 365 content. It's really easy to turn that information off and on. Okay, let me try a different browser really quickly to see if it accepts my password. And if not, I can always go to our free trial site as well. So the thing that I love about our website is that all of these videos, like I said, over 25,000 videos, they're really short. So the Clutter video, if I can get into it, if it lets me log in, let's see, I will try one more time. Is that these videos are 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe at the most a couple of minutes. In the case of Clutter, it's probably a 10-second video. And the great thing about it is that it has, at the bottom of the video, the text content as well. So if you're somebody who just needs that quick information, you don't even have to watch the whole video. You can just scroll to the bottom of it, and see the content. So this is our sample Evolve site. You can see we've got a lot of content out there. Now the trial site has limited content. So in our case of Office 365, we've got a lot of Sway content out there, which is another Office 365 exclusive feature. If I search for Clutter, we're not displaying that information on the trial site, but it is available on the dedicated sites that you would get. You can see there's another feature in Office 365, Sway, which again, Sway is free to use, but if you're using Office 365 in your organization, that may be something that your users aren't really familiar with and they're not sure how to get started on it. And we've got tons of videos on Sway. And I'll show you really, really quickly. I'll just click on one. You know, if they want to get a Sway overview, you can see the video, and it's 38 seconds, and we've also got the text content below it. So really, really great tool to use. You can select key products. You can show all products on the home page. You can put in a news and alert for them. You can show them highlighted content. And again, really easy to search, really easy to show the content that you want to show to your users. So even though we've got 25,000 videos, maybe you only want to show Office 2013, and then when you do the upgrade, you turn on the Office 365 content. If you're interested in seeing more about that, you can always go to freetrial.o365support.com. Sign up for a free trial. Again, it does have limited content, but you get an idea of the sorts of videos that we have. And then we have some sample videos that you can take a look at. So that's all we have today for Clutter. Again, very easy. You turn it on or off. We do have content available on Clutter on our Office365support.com website. So Evolve is a great product if you're interested, and part of my role as a trusted advisor is to let you know when these changes are coming to Office 365. So in the case of Clutter, we would have let you know, in May, hey, by the way, they're going to push out this change, and it's going to be turned on by default. So this is maybe something we want to let your users know, and they can come in and turn it on or off, or as an organization, you can make that decision. So we just kicked off our June series today. You can sign up for the whole series. Later this month, we're going to be talking about SharePoint libraries, OneDrive, and then Sway as well. You saw a quick little preview of our Sway content on Evolve 365. At the end of the month, Planet also has a webcast on best practices for Windows 10 deployment. So if that's something else that you're looking at in your org, you can definitely join us on that. So I'm going to pause really briefly for any questions. We always have the chat window available for you. And again, if you don't want to do it on the chat or the webcast, you can always reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn at Tanya Kaiser. You can find me really easily on those. And thanks everyone for joining today. Next week we'll be talking again about SharePoint. Folders versus metadata, or the cats versus dogs argument is normally what I call it. But I hope you enjoyed everything today, and we'll see you next week.